There's a lot going on this week with regard to Israel, and we're very fortunate to be joined this morning by Mehdi Hasan, who is founder of Zeteo News and out with a fantastic new and horrifying documentary about IDF soldiers and their conduct in Gaza. Mehdi, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, Krystal. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So to set up the premise a little bit, and you can elaborate here as well, there's been this question that's been floating around. We've seen all these social media, TikToks, Instagrams, et cetera, of IDF soldiers just publicly broadcasting their war crimes. And so you decided to send a team to Israel and actually speak to these soldiers and get in their own words why they are posting these atrocities. We have a little bit of the trailer we can show to people, and the name of the film is Israel's Real Extremism. Let's take a look at the trailer.
Here's a soldier saying that they've destroyed the university. There's no more education now in Gaza.
I think the education in Gaza was something you need to preserve.
People find it's humiliating,
Oh, maybe humiliating. I don't.
Someone's home.
As I told you before, I don't see any problem with humiliating the Palestinians. There is nothing with humiliating.
Since the war in Gaza started, Israeli soldiers on the front line have been broadcasting the devastation and their dehumanization of Palestinians on social media.
Actually, when I filmed it, my commander was very. They want me to do it.
There's videos where they've shown that they've tortured captives.
They didn't torture captives. You are lying. You are lying, you are lying. They are not torture captives. They are going.
This is a video where Israeli French soldier, but
they are being investigated.
A lot of Palestinians who are already suffering are starving.
It's a wrong question, okay? Because the Eid gets the Hamas.
The issue for Israel now goes well beyond the occupation.
כמה אני חושב שצריכים להרג עד שלא יהיה חמאס. אם צריך להרוג מיליון.
It will always be the response of the West. We are exaggerating, but we are war criminals. We are genocidal thought. That's alive.
So, Mehdi, not only did these soldiers and activists justify these acts, I mean, they truly celebrated them in the conversations that you were able to have here.
Yeah, we throw around the word, Krystal, shocking a lot, but there is a lot of shocking stuff in this film, even for those of us who commissioned it. And props to Basement Films in the UK, who are a bunch of Oscar-nominated and Emmy Award-winning filmmakers who had this pitch to go find the soldiers behind these TikToks and Instagrams. And interestingly, major networks, I won't say the names, in both the UK and the US turned this down. I wonder why. But we came along, Zeteo managed to fund it, and they did go out there and they did get the soldiers. And as you saw in that trailer, a lot of them don't care. And it's not just the soldiers, by the way. Media personalities, radical right-wing activists who are blocking aid at the border, settlers who want to resettle Gaza. All of them on tape bragging about this stuff. And it's so indicative of what has happened to Israeli society, especially post-October the 7th. The shift to the far right, the obsession with vengeance, the dehumanization of Palestinians, and the complete obliviousness, Krystal. They just don't care.
What were the lines, Mehdi, that you came across? Were there any lines in these interviews where you would get soldiers or their defenders saying, okay, you know what? If that happened, that did actually cross a moral line?
So one of the brothers we interviewed a barbershop owner. You may remember there was an infamous image out of Gaza where a soldier had a bunch of Palestinians, possibly dead, we still don't know, bound and gagged, and he had a sign for his brother or brother-in-law, I forget now, barbershop in Israel, advertising it in this video, such as the dehumanization. And the team on the ground managed to go speak to the owner of the barbershop, and he says in the film, he says, look, I have no, torture's wrong, but not torturing terrorists. That's fine with me. And obviously we've seen in recent weeks, since the film was made, the allegations, the video evidence of the rape and abuse in Israeli prisons that's been coming out. Look, that is a trend amongst people who really do not see these people as human, right? There's a clip from one of the soldiers, his name is Hen Cohen, he's a kitchen fitter, right? He's a guy who fits your kitchens in Israel in everyday life, goes out to Gaza, films himself laughing in destroyed Gazan kitchens, saying, hey, who wants a Palestinian kitchen? And when we spoke to him, he says quite openly, and it's in the trailer, he said, look, I walk around feeling superior to these people. Why not? I am superior to them.
Wow. I mean, when you hear this sort of sentiment, You would hope it's a fringe sentiment, but we know that it's not because we see the way that it's represented in the current government. So
yes.
what is your sense of how commonplace this view is where, first of all, every Palestinian is just, inherently made to be guilty. And once they're made guilty, well, nothing is off the table. We played here, and I'm sure you covered as well, the debates that were unfolding on popular Israeli television programs about how not only should it be fine for IDF soldiers to rape Palestinian detainees, but actually the only problem is that they don't do it more, and it's not systematized.
And this is happening on Israeli television. It's happening inside the Israeli parliament, in the Knesset, where they're debating the right to rape. What's interesting is it's not being seen in the US Congress, Krystal. It's not being seen on US television. US newspapers have not gone big on the video that was leaked and aired on Israeli television of an alleged gang rape of a Palestinian detainee. And that's why we wanted to make this documentary, Israel's Real Extremism, because you've got to see this stuff. You've got to hear it from them in their own words. You've got to see it on the ground. Because we talk so much about shared values. We talk about all the aid that we send Israel. Well, this is what it's paying for. And it's not a fringe, sadly. I wish it was a fringe. The fringe has taken over, just like the GOP here. The fringe has taken over the beast. You've got mainstream ministers in government. And I say mainstream because Itamar Ben-Gvir is not fringe. He's mainstream. When you're the security minister, you're mainstream. When you're the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, you're mainstream. And these ministers, as we show in the film, have attended conferences calling for the resettlement of Gaza. We cite polling in the film that shows anywhere between 25 and 40% of Israeli society, Israeli Jewish society, supports resettling Gaza. Now, Netanyahu's come out and said, we're not going to resettle Gaza. But there's a big chunk of his own government and of Israeli society that wants to do that. We interview Yosef. You just saw that very young radical settler who says, look, if we have to kill 1 million people, we'll kill 1 million people. But his dream is to go back into Gaza. They're going back in and trying to put, facts on the ground has always been the Israeli way. And by the way, we're speaking in a week where Ben-Gvir and all these guys have just announced a brand new illegal settlement in the occupied West Bank, which we don't talk about enough because obviously our attention is on Gaza.
Yeah, and to the extent that Israel does defend its attacks on civilians, what they will say is that, well, Hamas is using civilians as human shields.
Oh, the projection.
Yeah. Right. You hear a lot this saying that every accusation is a confession. So I wanted to get your response to this Haaretz investigation. We could put this up on the screen here, where they confirmed what has been known for many years. I believe this is, there it is, that IDF troops are often using human shields either tied to kind of roofs of cars or sent out into the streets or sent out into homes where they believe there may be militants, believing that the militants will then not fire at the Palestinian civilians, which to me is in conflict with the rhetoric that Hamas, not just doesn't care about Palestinian civilian life, but actively wants them to die because then they get, more international solidarity and support. So the fact that they would believe that that those humans would be actual effective shields against Hamas seems to undercut that rhetoric. Did this play a role in any of your interviews with folks on the ground there?
Only in the sense, as I say, that when you're confronting these people with the images, they just don't care. I mean, all roads lead back to dehumanization, right? And you saw Itamar Fleischman, very prominent Israeli right-wing media personality at the start of that trailer, saying, I have no problem humiliating the Palestinians. Nothing wrong with that. Just very blunt. And it's kind of, from the horse's mouth, as they say. And even when it comes to this story, and Ryan, you're so right to use the phrase, every accusation is a confession. Fundamentally, it has been the single most popular and prevalent defense of Israel's brutality in Gaza since October the 7th, which is it's all Hamas using human shields. And now we get this Haaretz investigation, which, as you say, confirms what we already knew has been on for years, especially in the West Bank, where we just saw a few months ago a guy tied to the roof of a Jeep. But what's so shocking about the Haaretz piece is three things. One is the Palestinians they grabbed to do this totally random. These are not kind of alleged militants who are being used as human shields. They're just random folks on the street who are grabbed by the IDF. The second point is that this is done with the approval of senior military leadership. These are not random rogue operations. And number three, the most shocking part of it is they put them in Israeli military uniforms, i.e. they want them to be shot at, right? They want them to be, not accidentally, they want the Hamas militants, fighters, whatever you want to call them, to shoot at Israeli soldiers who are actually Palestinians. And as you say, it goes against the whole argument, which is, well, hold on, Hamas don't care about civilian life, so why would they, why would they stop shooting if they knew it was a Palestinian? But, don't let any contradictions get in the way. By the way, going back to the TikToks, when we're talking about every accusation as a confession, I just saw yesterday an Israeli soldier put out another video on his social media of him using UNRWA aid to cook himself a meal. And again, weren't we told for 10 months that Hamas is stealing UNRWA aid? Here's an Israeli soldier stealing the aid. Oh, the projection.
Wow. Mehdi, obviously the most important factor here is the horror that Israelis are perpetrating against Palestinians. But we interviewed a liberal Zionist, an Israeli liberal Zionist, Shail Ben Ephraim. Ryan and Emily had interviewed him previously. And he was drawing a lot of parallels between the dehumanization and the increasing level of fascism in Israel with the United States. And it kind of bristled at it. I didn't say much at the time. I just, let him say his piece. But I kind of bristled at it because I was thinking to myself, okay, but on the other hand, we haven't had someone in Congress literally making the argument that, yes, it's fine for us, for soldiers to rape detainees. Like, we have not gone to that level. On the other hand, can I really draw that distinction when it's our country that is sending the bombs, when we have, not just the right, but we have many elements of the Democratic Party, including the president and, apparently the vice president, who have been supportive of this policy, who will, leak some, we're unhappy about this, and then send billions of dollars more in weapons to drop on schools where innocent Palestinians are sheltering. What are your reflections on that? And also, what is our support of this conflict doing to us and our country and the way that we view our fellow citizens around the world?
It's such a good question because, I grapple with this as well. And it's an interesting point. I think I would say a couple of things. One is, I've made the point before that Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and all of our freaks in Congress, they look like muesli-eating, sandal-wearing San Francisco liberals compared to a Itamar Ben-Gvir or the heritage minister who wants to drop a nuke on Gaza, or some of these kind of people arguing in the Knesset for a right to rape. Look, the Israeli far right makes the American far right look mild. That's just a fact. Based on the record. Having said that, as you say, we are complicit in this. In fact, we have liberals, quote unquote, we have Democrats, we have John Kirby, White House National Security Council spokesman, saying on the record, at the podium, that their military takes more precautions than our military does. We have American officials saying that the Israeli army is better than the American army, which I find astonishing on so many levels. And the only way they can do that is by, see no evil, hear no evil, Krystal. When people in America, especially Democrats, sign off on aid for Israel, to be fair, they're not saying, well, we want this money to go so we can rape Palestinian detainees. But they're doing something else that's disingenuous, which is they're saying, well, we don't want to know what's happening, right? And that's one of the reasons we made this film. And I would urge, let me do a plug for anyone from the White House watching this, realisrael.film, R-E-L, realisrael.film. Go watch the film, right? Because if American TV, if CNN, NBC, and the rest, New York Times are not showing this stuff, go watch and see what our tax dollars, what US aid is paying for, what this Israeli military looks like. Hear it from the soldiers' own mouths. Because that is the problem I have, is that people in America talk about Israel at some weird abstract level. A lot of people like Joe Biden are thinking of an Israel, I don't know from when. And nobody talks about the specifics. How many members of Congress have you seen, Krystal, be asked about the gang rape allegations in Israel? How many members of Congress are asked in TV interviews about what's happening with settler violence and terrorism in the West Bank? We just don't see those specifics put to our members of Congress. So they're able to write blank checks and then go off and do an event, do a rally, kiss babies, and forget about the fact that, as you say, we're complicit in this horror.
All right. We could take the two-shot here for 1 second, because earlier in the show, we talked about the ceasefire talks that are opening today in the region. Do you have any sense of whether or not things have shifted, that we should expect something different this time?
I think what we're now seeing belatedly, Ryan, 10 months into this, is a lot more focus on Netanyahu, right? Before it was, even until, a couple of months ago, it was Joe Biden saying, Israel's accepted the deal. Hamas is the bloc, even as Netanyahu was like, we haven't accepted the deal. It was almost like a really bad, skit from a comedy show. It was like, they've accepted. No, we haven't. And they even got it into a UN resolution, amazingly. There was actually a UN resolution passed which says Israel's accepted the deal when Israel had not accepted the deal. Bizarre, just kind of gaslighting on a level I've not seen in a long time, like Trumpian level gaslighting from the Biden administration. Now I think there's been so much pushback publicly and credit, you know where I give a lot of credit? To Israeli hostages' families who've not just protested on the streets of Israel and been, water cannoned and beaten up by police. I spoke to a family member who's been assaulted multiple times by the Israeli police, but they also came to DC, protested Netanyahu's speech, were arrested outside the speech, even as Netanyahu inside the hall called them Iranian proxies. Right. So they put a lot of pressure on and have come out and said, look, this is a complete failure. We've had people like Benny Gantz, former war cabinet member, come out and say, there was a deal. Netanyahu undermined it. So now we are seeing a bit more pressure. And I think now with the Haniyeh assassination in Iran, the Hamas leader who was actually leading the negotiations, they killed the guy leading the negotiations. There's good faith for you. I think you're seeing Hamas now saying, look, they're taking the deal more seriously. Iran has come out and said, if you don't want us to retaliate for your illegal bombing attempt, bombing on our soil, get a ceasefire. Quite a good deal, I think.
Seems fair.
Seems not fair. Seems like a great deal. We won't retaliate if you give another group of people a ceasefire that everyone in the world wants.
And that you have already approved through your cabinet.
Approved through your cabinet, through UN resolution, through the Biden administration's word as a Biden. So, yeah, I do hope that we are in a better place in terms of Isaac Netanyahu. The problem is he's a stubborn dude. So at the end of the day, even if everyone comes around to it, unless you pressure, unless Joe Biden makes the Ronald Reagan to Menachem Begin phone call that some of us have been urging him to make for months now, pick up the phone, call Netanyahu, make him do it, which he has the power to do, he's not going to do it.
Yeah, I think they just need to experiment with an asylum for him or something. He can live his days out in South Florida if they'll agree.
Go join his son there in Miami,
might appeal to Sarah Netanyahu.
Yeah, absolutely it would.
Mehdi, final question for you. What are your expectations about Kamala Harris and whether she would pursue a different policy than Joe Biden has with regards to not just, this particular assault on Gaza, but with regard to Israel-Palestine in general?
It is the $64,000 question, or maybe the $3 billion question. I don't know the answer to that in terms of policy. I think clearly we've seen a shift in rhetoric. We've definitely seen a shift in rhetoric, but obviously that rhetoric doesn't save anyone's lives. The uncommitted movement are pressuring and will be pressuring at the DNC next week for some movement on an arms embargo. The Harris team have come out and said she doesn't support an arms embargo, but that's what pressure is for. What's interesting is those of us who put pressure on Democrats before to switch from Biden to Harris were told, you want Trump to win. And actually, no, Harris taking over means Trump is less likely to win. We were right about that. And now we're saying, hey, come out for an arms embargo. They say, hey, you want Trump to win. Again, it's actually good policy. That's what a lot of people are trying to convince the Harris team. Put aside the morality, put aside international law. It's good for her and the Democrats to take a stronger line on Netanyahu. Great statistic in the new IMEU YouGov poll that my colleague Prem Taka has just reported on, which shows of Biden 2020 voters in Pennsylvania who are saying that they will not vote for Biden, will go third party or stay at home. 57% say they're more likely to vote Harris if she were to come out for an arms embargo. 0% say they would be less likely to vote Harris if she came out for an arms embargo. So pretty strong polling showing that it's all there for the taking. If she can make a move on policy, the rhetoric, great, keep doing it. But policy is what matters.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, Mehdi, congratulations on the film. And of course, congratulations on Zeteo. Tell people where they can go to support the work that you guys are doing. We've got three media entrepreneurs here, two that just launched new endeavors. So go sign up at Dropsite News and Zeteo. Mehdi, go ahead and give people the web address.
Krystal, you were ahead of the pack. Me and Ryan are just following in your footsteps. Zeteo.com is our site. But if you want to specifically watch the film, you can go to realisrael.film. That's REEL, realisrael.film. Check it out.
Terrific. Mehdi, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, up next, we're going to talk about the FDA's new terrible decision on MDMA. Stick around for that.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.